Welcome to Parev TV. Today we feel extremely excited and equally honored to be joined by the producers of a new documentary entitled 100 Years from Home. We have the husband and wife team, Lilit Pilikian and Jared White. This documentary made its successful premiere broadcast on PBS in Southern California on September the 1st. From what I hear, it was a smashing success, and an Encore broadcast is being planned. 100 Years from Home is the story of Lilit Pilikian, whose great-grandparents were from Kars, which is in present-day Turkey. Lilit, I'm going to start with you. You have inherited a blueprint of the house your ancestors built in Kars. Some 5 years ago, you visited the area your ancestors lived, both in Armenia and in Turkey. You keep saying in interviews that you've struggled with your identity. What do you mean that you've struggled with identity, and has this documentary brought that struggle to a close?
Well, I would start by saying I was born in America. I'm Armenian, yes I am. But growing up here, I've been torn between the two worlds. Mm-hmm. And in one of those worlds, the Armenian half, there are many other halves. So there's Eastern Armenian, there's Western Armenian, and my parents were raised in the Soviet Union, so they were raised atheist, and Christianity is such a big part of it. So I've been torn in so many different directions, and I haven't really understood my Armenian half and where I fit in that Armenian half. But with the 2015 commemoration on its way, I felt the urge to start looking for that other half of me. And my husband, being a filmmaker, kind of documented that process.
It's every Armenian has a story. Every Armenian. I think we are a people whose life stories can make beautiful documentaries. I don't want to go into other documentaries some friends of mine are working on. But how did it feel, Lilit, when you visit Armenia, you visit Artsakh, then you visit Turkey? How did it feel to travel to Turkey initially?
I was very hesitant at first. I was very nervous entering into Turkey. There was still this fear of Turkey in me, and kind of understandably so, when the country itself still has a hatred for Armenians. So I was hesitant going in, but walking the streets of Kars, I felt very close to my ancestors. Mm-hmm. I felt like I knew this was where they once lived, and that brought me very close to them. And it made these stories that I'd heard growing up real for me.
I've been to Kars, and I know what you are. I've gone through the same emotions, and the architecture, the color of the stones, the buildings, the design. Even I think you could also see Armenian right. language or neighborhoods or influence, and I think it must have been very fascinating. Jared, your journey has been with Lilit. You've been holding her hand, and you've been doing what she wants to do, and you've been a great support in producing this. You're also a writer. You have your own company. What was the experience like?
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker, but all of the projects I've done before this have been scripted narrative films. So this was really my first foray into documentary filmmaking. So it was a bit of a learning experience for me on that side of things. And, it was really it was a very small production. It was me and Lilit,
with cameras on our backs.
With cameras and equipment that for most of the shoot. It was an interesting thing where I was, I'm her husband, but I'm also the filmmaker that's documenting her. So I'm trying to balance those two hats that I'm wearing. I know, when we're going into Turkey that she's very nervous and anxious about going in there. And I'm trying to be there for her while also following her around with this camera. So it's this strange dynamic. But at the end of the day, I do think that the process of making the film brought us closer together. And, after each day, you know, we would sit down and say, okay, tell me about what happened today, or tell me about what's going through your mind or what you're feeling right now. And so it was this great way of kind of working through these things, and I got to better understand her in the process.
I think you have a very strong connection, and obviously, as you said, which is not surprising, after 4 years or 5 years of working together, you have strengthened that bond. And Jared, I do not know of a husband-wife team. I do not know of any who have produced an Armenian documentary. What are the challenges?
There was all sorts of challenges. I mean, one, like, there's the language barrier, you know, Hayarenem Sovorum Mikic, but I don't really speak it that well, so I couldn't conduct the interviews in Armenian for the people who didn't speak English. So Lilit took over those interviews, and I would do the English language interviews.
Yep.
But then editing that footage, you know, where half the interviews are in Armenian, was a challenge. But we had a co-editor with Gaia Negrajian, who helped a lot with that. She also really helped with honing in on the heart of the story. And then, yeah, I mean, going into Turkey, and you know, it's a crime to even talk about the genocide there. So trying not to draw attention to ourselves while we're there. There was a whole lot of challenges.
Hey, Jared, I don't know how much you know about Armenians when you first met Lilit. I don't know how much you knew, but since you met her and married her and you're husband and wife and you're producing and then you're visiting Armenia, what is your great picture of the Armenian community, nation, mentality, concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot through this. I mean, through just knowing her, and then especially through the process of making this film.
And I think it shows in the film itself. I mean, in a lot of ways, you know a lot more about Armenian history than I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's the film is sort of, we made it for non-Armenians to be able to watch it. People who don't know anything about Armenians, maybe haven't heard of the genocide before, so they can sit down, watch it, understand what happened, and understand what she's going through. And so
and follow it along.
You could say that it's sort of her story through my eyes is how we're sort of presenting the film. And then just in general, the Armenian people, in my experience, are just a very warm people. They're known for their hospitality, and we experienced that firsthand ourselves. You know, we would go to interview someone or meet with someone in the process of making this film, and they would greet us with food and drinks, and you know,
and recommend other people we need to go talk
they
to.
would, yeah, tell us someone else we should go interview, and it was just very warm experience. Everyone was very thankful that we were even doing this project. So it's been a very positive experience.
Lilit, I'm sure you know how close-knit Armenians are. And in the documentary, I understand you had interviewed people like Vaya Berberian, Richard Hovanesyan, the guy from Serena Williams' husband,
Alexis
Ohanian, you know, all these people, Bakim Mardirosyan from Harapal. Lilit, how easy was it to get these people aboard, and why did you want to have their comments in the video?
Well, when we first started, we started with Shushan Garbetian, and she kind of helped us understand who are some of the important people to get. But as far as actually reaching out and getting a hold of them, I would give that credit to my husband here, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, surprisingly, you know, I didn't know most of them beforehand. So, you know, Alexis Ohanian, I just sent a private message to online, and he ended up responding to it. I knew he was going to be in Yerevan the day after the centennial for this tech conference at the Tumo Center. And so we were going to go there too. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be there making this documentary. Would you like to sit down for an interview? And he very quickly responded with a yes. Similar story with Rafi Krikorian from Twitter. And then some of the others like Parga Martirosyan, it was just, you know, someone there recommended we talk to him, and they knew someone who could connect us with him.
And a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
In Armenia, you do phone calls, you don't do text.
And really the idea behind it was we wanted to give kind of a broad, different perspectives on the Armenian experience from, you know, people who are in the tech world, artists, writers, historians, in the church, and get all those different perspectives on what it means to be Armenian 100 years after this tragedy occurred.
Jared, when you were in Armenia on some April 24th a few years ago, and you watched the midnight parade or march from Yerevan to Dzirnagapet, this very long flag demonstrated in the streets, and the overall atmosphere, and then Dzirnagapet, what were you thinking? What were the emotions there? And especially in Dzirnagapet, I would like you to tell us, how were you able to capture that aerial view of the activities at Dzirnagapet?
Yeah, it was very moving to be in Yerevan on April 24th in 2015, and it felt like a funeral procession, which it basically is. And there was this you could just feel it in the air. There was this very solemn feeling. Everyone was walking quietly, holding their flowers that they were going to leave around the genocide memorial. And so I just wanted to do my best to capture that moment as best I could, and as respectfully as I could, and honoring that moment, because I felt very special to be there for that, and to be one of the people there documenting it. And then on the actual the aerial footage we got with a drone, we brought a drone with us to Armenia. And so we went to Tsitsernakaberd first, and that's when Lilit went and left her flower around the fire, and you see that in the film. And then they say it rains every year on April 24th in Armenia. And sure enough, as soon as we got to the top of that hill that Tsitsernakaberd's on, it started pouring, like the hardest rain I've ever experienced. We got out of there and got back to where we were staying, and she was like, I need to warm up.
I was just trained.
And I was like, I want to go back and get this, drone shot of the monument. She's like, okay, you go back. I'm not going to go.
I'm like, this is going to be dangerous. This doesn't sound like a good idea.
So I went by myself, and I, there all along the pathway leading up that hill, there was all of these police or security guards there. And so I was like, I better not just fly this drone without asking permission first. So I went up to one of the guards, and I first asked if he spoke English. He said no. And so I used the little bit of Armenian that I had to try to ask for permission. So I was like, Barevdzez, Garorem Nokarel.
That's beautiful.
He was like, yeah, Bavons, of course. And I was like, okay, Garorem Tornel. And he was like, Inch? And I showed him the drone, and he understood. And I basically got from him that I was okay to go straight up, straight down, but he didn't want me to get too close to the actual monument. And so I did that, and I showed him the footage I got from it. And he was like, yeah, you can get a little closer. And so he kept letting me get closer till I got right over, and that's the shot you see in the film.
That's a beautiful shot, really beautiful. Lilit, you're an industrial engineer, a production designer, and you also, when you have time, you also search on Google Map. Tell us about that adventure, because I know of a gentleman, maybe you know him too. His name is Steven Sims. Have you heard of him? Steven Sims. He spends
we watched another film called The Hidden Map, that documentary that he's in.
It's amazing what people can find using Google Map or satellite images. What did you find anything on these satellite images you were looking for?
So in the satellite images I was looking at in early 2015, maybe late 2014, I was seeing a lot of L-shaped roofs. I was comparing my ancestors' blueprint of the house they had built. There's one top view of the shape of the building that they would have had. So I was going around Google Maps trying to find buildings. I assumed Kars would be a small village, but quickly realized it's pretty big. And I didn't even know where to start. I didn't know if I should start by the river, if I should start by the edges, the old parts, the new parts. So I was looking around for any L shapes and I was marking them and quickly realized there were quite a few of them. And I think at the time there wasn't Street View or there wasn't any good Street View. So basically decided I had to go look in person.
You know, I read a lot about you two, about your adventure, your work, and nowhere was I able to find out whether you did find a house and were able to go into the house.
So we kind of are deliberately leaving that a mystery so that people will actually tune in and see the documentary.
That's a good one. I think you answered beautifully, and that's what I wanted to hear. When is the Encore viewing?
So it will be showing again in Southern California, this time on the PBS station KCET, and it'll be on Saturday, September 19th at 9:30 p.m. We're also currently working on bringing it to more PBS stations around the country. So if anyone who's watching this wants it to be shown in their area, we encourage them to reach out to their local PBS station. You can do that by going to pbs.org/stations, and you can type in your zip code and find your local station and contact them that way.
What would you like to tell viewers in terms of how to get that documentary in their areas? What is it they have to do? Many people say it will appear one day, but what is
one hope?
It will not. It will not. I agree with you. But what is it tell them what you want them to do?
Yeah, if they go to that website, pbs.org/stations, they can directly contact their local PBS station and request to see 100 Years from Home in their area.
Is that an email? Is that a phone call? What is that?
It gives you the email address or the phone number. They can do either one.
Or both.
Or both. We're also, on our end, we're working on contacting those stations as well and hoping to bring it to them. We also will be selling the DVD of it on our website soon at 100yearsfromhome.com. So that's another way you can see it.
Let me ask you, what were the problems? What were the problems in getting support for the production? You might tell me you did it all on your own. What kind of a support did you get that you could have used? There must have been something.
We did get support. We started off by running a Kickstarter campaign, and that helped us get the money to get started, to get equipment, to get to Armenia and everything.
Friends, family, strangers supported the project.
Yeah, that really helped us get going.
Got us our cameras, our microphones, and our drone.
And then we had a lot more, help with the production and post-production once we were back. In Los Angeles.
A lot of talented friends. I'd say, were able to help us.
That's beautiful.
With the editing, the music, the everything.
And a lot of them worked at, lower rates than they normally would to,
They deserve so much more.
Because they believed in the project as well, which meant a lot to us.
Jared, did you know it was going to take 4 years to come up with a
No, I did not. We were originally thinking that this would be like a short film, maybe like a 20-30 minute film, and we would maybe spend a year or so on it. That was the original plan.
That was my original plan.
Very quickly we realized this was too big of a story for a short. It needed to be a longer film.
We did some early test screenings, and everyone that watched it was like, well, tell me more about this, or why would she be afraid to go into Turkey at all? So we knew that we had to explain things a little bit.
Yeah, you have to establish a lot of the information for someone who doesn't know all this stuff to be able to understand. But yeah, I talked to someone else when I was about 2 or 3 years into the process. I talked to someone else who was a documentarian and told them I was 2 or 3 years in. He's like, oh, that's still early.
Yeah.
So apparently that's a pretty common thing with documentaries. They tend to take a long time.
Yes.
Tell me about the music.
Yes. So our
original pieces.
Yeah, we have all the original music was composed by Emily Rice, who's a brilliant composer. She is not Armenian, but she did a great job of incorporating a lot of Armenian elements into the score, and she wrote a lot of parts for duduk, and we actually got an Armenian duduk player to record what she wrote and incorporate that as part of her score. And she used a lot of other Armenian instruments as well in the score. And then on top of that, we were able to contact Ara Gevorgyan, and he gave us permission to use several of his songs in the film as well, which I think add quite a bit.
I think my favorite is a song I hadn't even really heard before, Cars. We use the song Cars in Cars.
Yeah,
I don't know if you are referring to Cars, Cars, Cars. Is that the song Levon Katurjan sings?
No, it's just called Kars, and it's an Ara Gevorgyan. It's just instrumental.
Oh, Ara Gevorgyan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use that in the film when we were actually in Kars.
And it has like a mysterious element that actually fit really well with what we were going for.
Yeah, and we also used some choir music from this group called Lusaber Choir.
Because there is a song, Kars, 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 Hayreni Kars, Yer Bidi Tu Hayrenik Veratarnas. It's a very powerful nationalistic song. I used to sing it when I was much younger, and it's something you might want to check out because it's a very popular, Kars, Kars, Kars. And I know a gentleman by the name of Levon Katurjan sings it. In Lilit, Hayrenov Pamerse.
Ինչ ասեմ, ինչ կուզես։
Ինչպես կսկաս։ Լավ կսկաս։ Հաղթանակ, կսկաս հաղթանակ, այսինքն մեծ աշխատանք է դարած աշխատանքդ։
Huge. Shot myths.
Film in Armenian.
I guess I could say a couple of things. Մենք documental film ենք նկարահանել 100 years from home, 100 տարի տնից հեռու, որ ցուցադրվելու է American TV, ալիք KCET, եւ I don't know. You want me to keep going?
Garrett, you help her with the Armenian. Use every Armenian word you know.
Ֆիլմի մեջ մենք հարցազրույց ենք վարել բազմաթիվ նշանավոր հայերի հետ, Վահե Բեբերյանը, Ալեքսիս Օհանյանը, Ռիչարդ Հովանիսյանը, Կարլա Կարապետյանը,
You're so fluent in Armenian.
Եվ այլն.
Listen, I really enjoy talking to you, and I hope,
Likewise.
I really hope very much so that your documentary will be distributed throughout the country and worldwide, because we need these stories. It's not only Lilit Pilikian's story, it's Armenia's story. And I realize the difficulties. What would you like to advise young members of the community who are moving into communication, into film, into video? What is your advice? Lilit and Jared, what would you like to tell them?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I would just say that in my experience for storytelling, filmmaking, the more personal you make something, the more universal it becomes. A lot of people think if they make it very personal, no one will relate to it, no one will understand it, but it's just the opposite. It's the more personal you make it, the more universal it is. And we've really experienced that with this film, where, you know, we've had different screenings of it. We showed it at the ARPA Film Festival in Hollywood, and we have Armenians and non-Armenians coming up to us and saying, you know, I have a story just like that in my family, or I'm a refugee from a different country, but I could relate to her experience. And so I would say, you know, focus on the stories that really mean something to you.
Lilit, what advice would you give the younger generation who are interested in that whole industry?
I would say start telling your stories, start recording your stories, whatever medium you use, just start. Even if it's just sitting a camera in front of your family members and asking them the tough questions and understanding yourself better. Start.
Yeah, it's you know, if you have a grandparent or you know, a parent that
are full of stories.
They're full of stories,
and
I mean, document them if you can. And everyone's got a cell phone that can capture very good video. No one has any excuse. You should sit them down and get these stories so you can have them forever.
Yeah, but with that story, you need that commitment. You need that drive. You need that persistence to realize the product. That's Jared's responsibility, and Lily
Yes.
directs Jared. You know, Jared, I think you're a very happy person because you do what she wants.
That's right. That's right.
Anything in closing, Lilith?
In closing, thank you so much for having us. This has been a
It was
real
our
pleasure
pleasure.
talking to you and spreading our story and getting it out there.
And Jared, in closing?
Yeah, I keep coming back to the importance of the truth. You know, this project just reinforced in me the importance of fighting for the truth. You know, when countries deny that genocides took place, it just gives permission to other countries to commit more atrocities. And sadly, genocides are still happening to this day around the world. And so the best thing we can do to fight against that is to shine a light on what happened, to talk about it, and, you know, to not let it just, you know, live in the shadows and be lied about and denied. We need to bring it into the light, talk about it, and, you know, try to prevent it from happening again.
You know, there are many Armenians who will be watching you in the East Coast, and then we have many organizations, very noble Armenian organizations, our headquarters in New York area. Please wrap up this interview. What can we do again? I know you have mentioned it, but bring it up again. What can we do?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to see the film in your area, please, you can go to pbs.org/stations and request it to be shown in your area. And then in addition to that, you can go to 100yearsfromhome.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at 100 Years From Home for all updates on where you'll be able to watch it or when the DVD is available for sale. And you can also contact us if, you know, we're also working with a lot of Armenian organizations on helping get the word out about all of these different broadcasts.
Yeah. And I think our next step is trying to find distribution for it.
Well, that's a very good point. Distribution, absolutely. Lilit Pilikian and Jared White, it's been a pleasure, honestly, and an honor to talk with you and find more about your documentary. And we obviously wish you all the success. And we will do our share to promote it in the area. And I hope you can visit us in the East Coast sometime and see how we can help you promote this documentary. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Շատ շնորհակալություն։